What you just heard was Edward Blackwell playing with Eric Dolphy's group in Volume 2 of a series of records recorded live at the Five Spot in New York in July 1961. That quintet comprised of Eric Dolphy playing flute and bass clarinet, well, just bass clarinet on that piece, which was called Aggression, Booker Little on trumpet, Mal Waldron on piano, and Richard Davis on bass, as well as Blackwell on drums. And what a great group that was. And of course the group that Ed Blackwell was referring to before I played that piece was local musicians who go by the name of Keys. And Keys, of course, play on Sunday evenings at the Paradise Club up in King's Cross. When did you first go to Africa?
I first went to Africa in 1966 with Randy Weston for the State Department. It was a cultural tour, and we visited about 16 different countries, all doing it. We were there for about 3 months, about 3.5 months. And we went all through North Africa, West Africa. The only part we didn't get to was East Africa, and at the time we were having a conflict in Nigeria, so we couldn't go to Nigeria. But we had fun. It was the most memorial trip I ever had, Africa. That was my first trip out of America and straight to Africa. Yeah.
And you go back there pretty often, or?
Well, we went back in '67 to Morocco to live. And we stayed in Morocco about 2 years, my family with Randy, his family and everything. And we were working for a Moroccan government hotel chain, called Diafa, and they had hotels situated all around Morocco. So we played all over Morocco at these hotels, stayed, and that's where we worked.
And I also got the impression from doing the workshop, like when you travel around Africa, you're really learning.
Well, yeah, in Africa is a country where you can't help but learn, because there's so much around for you to observe, and everything is all something, music and everything, something's always going on in Africa, something for you to learn about. And me especially, coming from New Orleans, I realized how much New Orleans retained a lot of the African culture, because especially from the parades, the different parades and the funerals and weddings, and a lot of the culture that was maintained, and I wasn't aware of it until I went to Africa, how much New Orleans still maintains a lot of African culture.
And someone like me, I don't know that much about African music except through jazz.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to start listening to African music, where it's a bit difficult for me just phrasing the questions, but what should I be looking for in African music? Just tribal village music.
Well, no, that's a very difficult question, because African music encompasses so much, so many different phases, and it depends on the different phase of what you're looking for in African music. When I went there, the thing I was most interested in were the rhythms, and so as a result, I went out into the bush to travel, listen at the older Africans, and listening at the rhythms and the dance to try to associate as much as I could with that, with what I was doing, which is very difficult because you hear so much music, it's very difficult to retain a lot of it. So you retain little pieces of it, But if I was just starting out listening to African music, there are different phases, For instance, the Pygmies are one of the most musical African groups. They're the Pygmies, and then they have the Nigerians, You know, and you have the Burundis, you have the tribes from Mali. There's so many all over Africa. There's so many different tribes: Dahomey, Togo, Lomé, Ghana. So many different places that you hear different types of rhythms, and it's all Africa.
Yeah.
So that's when you say, well, how would you start out? You know, just start out buying African records. You know, it doesn't make any difference from where you start. You know, the difference is the thing is what you're looking for.
Did you pick up many instruments when you were there?
No, it was difficult to pick up instruments because, for one thing, the government didn't want us to buy, didn't bring too many instruments back because, for one thing, you had to pay so much duty on them. And another thing, the most important, the most delicate instruments were the ones that you had to have made, like the one like Don has, the Duzenguni. Those are personally made. I mean, you just don't buy those in shops. You have to apply and have them made. So you know. But there are quite a lot of instruments where you pick up. You find little kids, you know, you the kids 8, 9 years old making instruments out of old tin cans and with striped with string. And they play them, and they learn to play them very proficiently. When you buy them, you find out they're very difficult to play. You know. But when you see these kids play them, you say, wow, that sounds good. It's easy to play. But they're not, because these kids come up all their life learning these different rhythms with these particular instruments, and they make them themselves, you know.
Did you get many African musicians coming over to the States?
No, I had quite a lot that asked me to help them get to America. There are quite a lot that want. Now there are more that's coming now. There are more coming than when I was there in '66. Now it's opening up more, you know. I mean, because Nigeria has all this oil and everything, so it's more easy. It's easier to get a visa to come from Africa to America now.
And that's sure to help to open up America to African music.
Well, yeah, but you know, there's still so many Americans that are still not aware of Africa. You know, the ones that do go, when they come back, you know, they just can't stop talking. Now, recently they had a couple of festivals in Senegal for a couple of years. I think it was a couple of years ago. They were supposed to have one every year, but they didn't have one this year. And that's the only thing that's happening that I know of besides Nigeria, you know, that produce so much music in Dakar. But the only other place that you hear the African music is when you go to the African country themselves, you know, in Dahomey.
And at the workshop, you were talking about the master drummer in Ghana.
Oh yes, right. There's a master drummer up at Wesleyan from Ghana. His name is Kobina, and he's one. Well, in Africa, the drums are handed down from father to son. You know, like most of the master drummers play for the kings, and their art is handed down from father to son. You know, as it goes down the line like that. And his father was the drummer first. In fact, his father was the king. Yeah.
Of Ghana?
In Ghana, in the Iwe tribe. In the Iwe tribe, his father was. And he is the son of a king. And he is the master drummer.
In his book, Free Jazz, Eckhard Yost says that Blackwell, on Don Cherry's album Complete Communion, provides an effective demonstration of the thematic improvisation patterns being explored at the time by John Coltrane and Ornette Coleman, and not many others. To quote Yost, "As we know, drum solos in jazz, whatever the stylistic area, very often deteriorate into a show of virtuosity, without recognizable thought or direction, and have little or nothing to do with the music. This is not the case with Blackwell. Building on the rhythm patterns of the tunes, he develops his solos into variations on those patterns by playing round them, breaking them up, putting them back together, superimposing others, etc. In this respect, Blackwell's free jazz drum solos are a good deal less free than the long-winded solo excursions of Buddy Rich, for example. This, says Eckhard Yost, is one of the ironies that arise in jazz when the concept of freedom is used without defining it. The most important documentation of Don Cherry's music around 1970 are two records he made with Blackwell in August 1969 in Paris, Mew Parts 1 and 2. Stripped of all frills and governed solely by the creative will and musical experience of Cherry as agent and the sensitivity of Ed Blackwell as reagent, these recordings afford a unique view of the quintessence of Don Cherry's music, or, as Eckhard Jost calls it, Don Cherry music, one word. From the record Mew, first part, two demonstrations of how Blackwell uses rhythm to reflect, enhance, and drive the melody. Firstly, I'll play a few minutes of Omahelo from Mew Part 1. Note the rhythmic tension that comes from Don Cherry and Blackwell playing in different meters. Cherry is repeating a 7-beat pattern on the flute, to which Blackwell contrasts a syncopated 6-beat rhythm on the drums. The resultant crossing and constant shift of accents creates a rhythmic conflict similar to that found in African drum and xylophone music.